Welcome to Smart at Math. This channel is devoted to supporting teachers to improve instruction for all students. This video will talk about differentiation. Teachers are told all the time to differentiate, but we all know there's a lot of challenges to differentiation. So this video will help you with those challenges. How do we differentiate? Let's call it the 3 P's. There's 3 ways we can differentiate. The presentation, how it is taught. The process, how it is done by the students. And the product, how do they demonstrate their knowledge. Presentation, how is it taught? Is it going to be more teacher or student-centered? You can have whole class instruction, which is usually more teacher-centered. It could be kind of a lecture or demonstration. Small group instruction can have a teacher group and then other student groups doing either independent work and or problem-solving cooperative group work. Stations is more student-centered, where they're doing some kind of discovery activity. They may even have choice activities when they go from station to station. And cooperative groups where they could have some problem-based learning or even traditional book learning, but they're helping each other. Let's talk about direct instruction. It's traditionally kind of a lecture or demo with the teacher in front of the room, whole class instruction. But even within that model, we can differentiate to meet the needs of our students, either ability or learning styles. Remember, some students are visual, some are auditory learners, some are hands-on. So even though we have a traditional whole class instruction, we can teach the students alternative note-taking, such as Cornell notes or scientific notebook. We can even print out the notes for those students that are a little too slow, that can't write them out as quickly as we're talking. Manipulatives, even though it's a whole group instruction, we could have the students using manipulatives at their seat, so they're using some hands-on to meet their different learning styles. We could also have small group instruction, where the teacher-led group is direct instruction, maybe for some remediation, and the other groups may be independent study, choice activities, or cooperative learning. Process, how is it done? You can have traditional paper and pencil activities, either worksheets, book work, and here you can even differentiate where some students are required to do different amounts. Cooperative groups, where you have different ability levels and they kind of help each other and learn from each other's learning styles. Stations, where the students move from station to station and do some kind of discovery, student-centered activities, either as individuals or little groups. Compacting, when you do your pre-assessment, if some students already understand and know the content, there's no reason for them to do that lesson again. So you have them move on to a different standard, a different activity. Independent contracts, this can be for English language learners, for special ed students that have their own IEP, or for GATE students that have to have some kind of enrichment activity. Choice opportunities, this is a great way for students to choose different ways for them to get the content. They may want to go to a listening center, work with a partner, or read silently. Product, how do they demonstrate their knowledge of the standards? You can have traditional assessments, and even within traditional assessments you can differentiate. Some students can be responsible for 5 problems, some can be responsible for 10 problems. Written reports and papers, and herein you can differentiate once again. Art video projects for students that are more artistic. Oral reports for students that are good talkers. They can stand up in front of the room and do a great presentation. PowerPoint presentations, any kind of computer work, sometimes that frees the students up to be a little more creative because they don't have to worry. They got the spell check and they don't have to worry about writing, maybe if they struggle with handwriting. Skits, songs, dances, this is a great opportunity for maybe a social studies lesson. They can do a skit that lets you know they understand all the history, but it's a different way to present it. Managing differentiation. The nuts and bolts. Yes, those are all great ideas, but how do you do it? So let's talk about nuts and bolts. Decide what you want to teach using your core content, your standards. Decide on what I call the outcomes. What do you want the students to be able to do at the end of your lesson? Pre-assess to determine your existing knowledge. You don't know what to teach if you don't know what the students already know. So you must pre-assess. Then after you've done your assessment, create groupings, and it depends on what you want to do. If you're going to do some remediation or enrichment, you're going to put them in ability groups. If you're going to do some project-based learning or some problem solving, you're going to put them in cooperative groups where they get the benefit of different learning styles and different ability levels. Preparation and organization. You must be well prepared and well organized in order for this to be a success. If you don't take the time to prepare, you're going to set the students and yourself up for failure. Think about your materials. How will you distribute these materials? How will the students get it? Will they be in baggies? Will they be in bins at the tables? Will they come up a little at a time to collect their materials? Directions. How will you give them the directions? If you're going to say it in front of the classroom, make sure that you don't do more than 3 steps at a time, and maybe write the instructions on the whiteboard or put placards at the stations if you're going to do stations. You can print out the directions on a ditto and give each student their own copy of the directions. Noise levels. What is acceptable? What kind of noise is acceptable? Student movement. You need to think this out ahead of time so they're not crashing into each other, because you don't want to create opportunities for conflict because kids are bumping into each other. Plus, it's a waste of time if it's not done well. Room arrangement. You want the room arrangement to facilitate whatever you're doing. Group work, student movement, etc. Teacher assistance. How will they get your assistance? You need to teach them of the proper way to get your assistance, and when will you provide it, and how will you provide it. And the monitoring of students. How will you hold them accountable? How will you make sure that everything's going the way you want it to go? Expectations. You need to be very clear about your expectations to the students. You need to communicate those expectations. You're going to establish behavior norms. You want to train the students so that they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. You have to build in accountability for both groups if you're doing groups, so some kind of group accountability, and individual student accountability if you're doing independent work or even independent students within groups. And you want to make sure you always assess and reflect what you're doing. The best advice I can give you is to start small. Start small and do it really well. Maybe if you're going to do small group instruction, the first couple of times you're just going to do half and half, then maybe 3 groups and then 4 groups. Remember, the logistics is something that you have to learn and perfect. Also, by starting small, I also mean for you not to try to do everything every day. You will burn yourself out. In order to do this well, you must be very well prepared and organized, and you can't do a whole bunch of things every single day because you won't do it well and you'll burn yourself out, and that won't be good for the students or you. Let's recap how to differentiate. Presentation, how you teach it. Process, how the students do it. And product, how the students demonstrate their knowledge. You need to assess the students. How do you teach them if you don't know what they already know? And you're going to group them based on the assessment and your goals. Prepare and organize. You want the students to be very successful, so you want to be very well prepared and very well organized to build in success for you and the students. Train the students. Don't jump right into the curriculum. Take the time to train the students so they understand what the expectations are when they're doing all the different alternative instructional strategies that you are putting forth. And start small and do it well. Be successful by just doing a little at a time to get your sea legs. Here are some suggested resources. Here are some good books on differentiation. Thank you for visiting our channel, Smart at Math. We would love for you to subscribe. And if you want copies of this presentation and other teacher resources, visit our website, www.mastermiddleschoolmath.com. Remember, the teaching profession makes every other profession possible.